Good evening. My name is Taru, and I welcome you to this week's Friday Study Circle. And here we discuss, basically, reflect on the words of various masters and mystics, especially those of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother. And right now with me is Chitraji, and Jyotsnaji is here as well. So she comes in at a perfect time, and we'll begin the circle. So today, before we begin, Monica and I we are reading this book these days, "Cave in the Snow."
Yeah.
So it's like amazingly beautiful. It's a story of Tenzin Palmo. She was from London and she spent 12 years in a cave in India. So it's her journey. So right, just sometimes back I was reading something which is very beautiful. It's one paragraph. I'll just read it out and yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
There is the thought, and then there is the knowing of the thought. And the difference between being aware of the thought and just thinking is immense. It's enormous. Normally, we are so identified with our thoughts and emotions that we are them. We are the happiness, we are the anger, we are the fear. We have to learn to step back and know our thoughts and emotions are just thoughts and emotions. They are just mental states. They are not solid, they are transparent. One has to know that and then not identify with the knower. This is something that came as a very big punch to me that you're not the thought, and then you have to know that you're not the knower. So it was So one has to know that the knower is not somebody. It's not a body that the one that knows. So there's more, but this was the basic thing. So you know how mother also had studied Buddhism, and so a lot of what she says, it's amazing how it's like it's as if we are reading the mother, we are reading the mother again and again. So much of what she talks about. I'll read one more paragraph. It's in continuation of this only. So, to know that you are not the knower, that brings you to the question, who am I? Somebody asked her after she had said the last paragraph. So she says that was Buddha's great understanding to realize that the further back we go, the more open and empty the quality of our consciousness becomes. Like when you keep going back, instead of finding some solid little eternal entity, which is I, we get back to this vast, spacious mind, which is interconnected with all living beings. In this space, you have to ask where is the I and where is the other. As long as we are in the realm of duality, there is the I and the other. And this is the basic delusion. This is what causes all problems. Because of this, we have a sense of being very separate. And this is the basic ignorance. Emptiness is what basically, it takes us to. And that is the main essence of Buddhism. Yeah, so I'll stop this here. So um, I think if there's any comment on this, one can make. Otherwise, whoever wants to share. Thank you.
Um, Actually, no, wonderfully. I also read the same thing from Synthesis of Yoga.
Oh, wonderful.
Same thing as you read. This paragraph touched me a lot because, and in Advaita also it is there, no, you are not the thought, you are not the suffering, you are not the disease, and you are not the person. It is everything is an illusion and Maya. Yes. Yeah, I that principle somewhat attracted me. I used to meditate upon it actually. Whenever the thoughts, recurring thoughts, pattern of thoughts coming, and whenever I face any crisis or I am in sad mood and all, I used to sit and meditate. I'm not this, I'm not this, I'm not this. I am that Shuddha Chaitanya Rupam. I used to tell. But somewhat again and again that question will arise, from where the thoughts are coming, from where this suffering of course, there must be some cause. But thoughts, I used to wonder for a long time, even after reading Mother and Sri Aurobindo, yeah. But now I'm going through that synthesis of yoga, no? Josnath is there? She must be
Yes.
knowing, yeah. She knows about this. That chapter Supreme Will we are going through. In that, I read this paragraph. It is very clear. Sri Aurobindo very clearly brought out how the thoughts are arising, from where it is coming to us. As you read, I will read that paragraph. Supreme Will, that chapter is, this ego or I is not a lasting truth.
Which page, Chitradi?
214. 214.
Ah,
Yeah, you only explained about this paragraph also. Beautiful paragraph. This ego or I is not a lasting truth, much less our essential part. It is only a formation of nature, a mental form of thought centralization in the perceiving and discriminating mind. You can find out.
I'm sorry, my son just came
No
in.
problem. No.
No,
Yeah.
but I did. I just share. It was not coming when I was doing.
Okay.
So the ego or I is not your lasting. This is the first
Yeah.
sentence.
Yeah. That
So in
paragraph.
this, I didn't. I'll just do the exact phrase again. And
Aru is not a lasting.
okay.
This ego or I is not lasting.
Yeah,
No?
got it. Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Much less our essential part. It is only a formation of nature. You please note down those things. Actually, it is only a formation of nature, a mental form of thought centralization in the perceiving and discriminating mind, a vital form of the centralization of feeling and sensation in our parts of life, a form of physical conscious reception, centralizing substance and function of substance in our bodies. All that we internally are is not ego, but consciousness, soul, or spirit. All that we externally and superficially are and do is not ego, but nature. Note down that nature is the capital letter. An executive cosmic force shapes us and dictates through our temperament and environment and mentality, so shaped through our individualized formulation of the cosmic energies, our actions and the results. Truly, we do not think. This is the thing I want to highlight. Truly, we do not think, will, or act, but thought occurs in us. Will occurs in us. Impulse and act occur in us. Our ego sense gathers around itself, refers to itself all this flow of natural activities. It is cosmic force, it is nature that forms the thought, imposes the will, imparts the impulse. Our body, mind, and ego are a wave of that sea, and sea of force in action, and do not govern it, but by it are governed and directed. This is the important line. The sadhaka in his progress towards truth and self-knowledge must come to a point where the soul opens its eyes of vision, where the soul opens its eyes of vision and recognizes this truth of ego and this truth of works. He gives out the idea of a mental, vital, physical I that acts or governs action. He recognizes that Prakriti, force of cosmic nature, following her fixed modes, is the one and only worker in him and in all things and creatures. This is very beautiful, no? What you read connected with this, no? Actually.
Yeah, very connected. Actually.
Yeah. I feel very happy after this paragraph, after long years. Actually. Yeah, I'm not responsible for my thought. Very beautiful it is.
Yeah. I think I am not responsible for my thought, and I am not my thought, right? Like I am responsible for the identification or unidentification.
Yeah,
One
identification.
has to remember
Yeah,
that, otherwise,
when you identify with it,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
that one you have to shed. Always Monica used to tell, no, all sessions you have to shed everything, then you will realize, yeah, that is the thing.
yeah,
But here it is very clear. Maybe all these are mantric lines, no, share with those.
yeah.
So it's going inside, really drinking. We are drinking these lines. Josna, she used to explain a lot and very nicely in the sessions. We are getting lot of knowledge from her now.
You know, Taru, it comes out inspired early in the morning at 5:45. I get up at 4 o'clock, and then at 5:45 this begins, and I make an attempt to read before, understand, imbibe, and only then I'll talk. Otherwise, I will stay silent and listen back. But this chapter, I just loved it.
Tell us more, Josna ji.
No, it's basically, you know, if you summarize it, it is that internally you are consciousness, externally you are Prakriti. So you are not your thoughts. Your thoughts are coming from you, connected to Khalil Gibran. Your thoughts are not coming from you, but they are the yearning of life itself. So
Mhm.
this is also, they are coming from, it is the cosmic force of nature, Prakriti, which acts through you. So uh, then in one more significant sentence, it is the cosmic force, it is the nature that forms the thought, imposes the will, imparts the impulse, the movement. And our body, mind, and ego are just a wave of that sea of Mother Nature in reality. We are nothing. And our body, mind, and ego are a wave of that sea of force in action and do not govern it, but are governed and directed.
Yeah.
Okay. And, you know, you are not the doer, you are not the worker, you are not the executor. Just now you're cooking. The cosmic force decides that you will cook now. The spirit with which you do it and what is behind it in doing it, that is yours. It's coming from your inner self. But that you are going to do this and execute this and do this is decided by the cosmic force Prakriti. And when it goes higher and you start your surrender and you start aspiring and you go upwards, then Ishvara Shakti come into being and play. And as you go above the supramental levels, they are anyway one. And Ishvara is an embodiment of Shakti and vice versa. And then they take over hand in hand. Shakti to Prakriti and Ishvara to Purusha. It's very nice. You should read this chapter. But now it has become that now I'm loving the next chapter also. So it just grows on you.
Yeah. Yeah. This sentence that we have heard so often, that, the identification with the
Yeah.
I is the cause of all suffering.
Mm.
It's making so much more sense now, right? Like earlier, it was just something that you have heard. It didn't, you could not,
Correct.
connect the dots. Ki, yeah, it's just a statement and it's true, but I don't know what it means. Like, how is that possible? Whatever, like you could not derive to it. But with this thing,
And then, in the next paragraph, it comes, without him, I exist not.
mm,
Without me, he is unmanifest.
mm,
What bonding,
mm,
what oneness. For me, this chapter was just mantric,
yeah.
Though my memory is going for a toss, but there's some things I remember.
Yeah, just say the name of the chapter again.
The Supreme Will.
The Supreme Will. Okay.
It's in Yoga of Divine Works.
Okay. Okay. Chitraji, you are mute if you're talking to us.
Because so much disturbance was there. So I thought I can mute. Yeah. The Supreme Will. Yeah. That is the chapter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As you said, I also felt like that. I could connect now.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is the feeling. Very correctly you said. Yeah.
And one more thing, I feel that I saw when I again read it today was that how we say that little knowledge is dangerous.
Mm.
So if we stop in between, I say, okay, I'm not my emotions, and I stop there. Then I think I'm the thought. If I, just think I'm not the thought and I stop there, then I think I'm, kind of the intellect. So it's like if I stop in between, it's as if I didn't walk at all. Right? Like the ego is
Right.
fully there. Okay, I'm not this, but I'm the witness. I am the knower. So
Yeah.
unless you reach the zero, all
Yeah.
this thing, I mean, you have to keep
Correct.
not that you're doing it, it's grace that's doing it, but kind
Yeah.
of it's like, how it's like perfection is not a state, it's
Yeah.
a journey. So it's just the more you know,
Yeah.
the more you do, not the more you know, but the more you
Yeah.
do, it's just more and more and more and more.
That is why, again, this line, no, where the soul opens its eyes of vision only, you will really, come to know about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Recognizes this truth of ego. When the soul opens its eyes of vision and recognizes this truth of ego and this truth of works. So that is a very important point here. Yes. As you said, it should not, it should also give us a false satisfaction, no? That should not come. Yeah, correct.
Because something comes, right? Like I say, I understand now.
Yeah,
Right
correct.
now I said now I can connect the dots.
Correct.
There is something inside which
Yeah.
says,
Thanks for
yeah,
pointing out.
yeah.
Really, yeah, I love that. Yes, correct. Thanks for pointing out. Yes.
Where is Captain nowadays?
I don't know. He didn't respond. I didn't connect with him. I'll message him after the session. Yeah. Yeah. Yusna,
Last
are
week,
you well? You look a bit tired.
I'm okay.
Oh, sorry, Chitraji was saying something.
I
no,
just
no.
came to Vigappa's and I came and sat down for dinner.
Okay. So, what should we take up next?
I don't know.
I read something very interesting.
Mm.
If you don't have anything else to read, then I will read that.
Yeah,
First you
definitely.
read, then I also have a little bit something I read on incarnate, but first we listen to you. Yes.
I read on sincerity.
Okay.
Okay. Somebody asked, it's on 14th April,
So they do by day.
14 April 1929. 29.
Okay. The supreme will.
Many people accept certain theories. You have said that you must be vigilant and see that you do not use the divine as a cloak for the satisfaction of your desires. Or you put the first thing, first sentence, many people accept.
Yeah, I think I got it.
Yes, you got it.
Yeah.
Many people accept certain theories, some of which are very convenient, and they say everything is the result of the divine will. ये सब भगवान के हाथ से है, ये सब भगवान ने किया. Others say the divine is everywhere and in everything and does everything. Very easy for us. Yet others say my will is one with the divine will. It is he who inspires me. Indeed, there are many theories, and they say that naturally their ego is as alive. They do all that they want to do, saying it is the divine who is doing it in me. Whatever is supplied by their brain is the divine will. It is not a personal inspiration. Everything is the result of the divine will. It is not I who am acting. It is the divine who is acting through me. They do all that they wish to do. There are many people like that. Therefore, I said, do not use the divine as a pretty cloak to hide your desires. Very apt and significant in our day-to-day lives. At the drop of a hat, anybody says, ये तो भगवान की लीला है, वो ही कर रहे हैं. But it is your ego which is at work. So that was one. And then the next question is there. Is it there in this? After this?
If you're not sincere, do not be
The
sincere.
question is to be sincere. Yeah, there it is.
Okay.
If you are not sincere, do not begin yoga.
Yeah.
Sincerity is perhaps the most difficult of all things, and perhaps it is also the most effective. If you do not have perfect sincerity, you are, if you have perfect sincerity, you are sure of victory. It is infinitely difficult. Sincerity consists in making all the elements of the being, all the movements, whether outer or inner, all the parts of the being, all of them have one single will to belong to the divine, to live only for the divine, to will only what the divine wills, to express only the divine will, and to have no other source of energy than that of the divine in every cell of the body, actually. And you find that there is not a day, not an hour, not a minute when you do not need to intensify, rectify your sincerity, a total refusal to deceive the divine. The first thing is not to deceive oneself. One knows one cannot deceive the divine. Even the cleverest of the asuras cannot deceive the divine. But even when one has understood that, one sees that quite often in one's life, in the course of the day, one tries to deceive oneself without even knowing it, spontaneously and almost automatically. One always gives favorable explanations for all that one does, for one's words and for one's acts. That is what happens first. I am not speaking of obvious things like quarreling and saying it is the other one's fault. I am speaking of the very tiny things of daily life. I know a child who knocked against a door and he gave a good kick to the door. It is the same thing. It is always the other one who is in the wrong, who has committed the mistake. Even when you have passed the stage of the child, when you have a little reason, you still give the stupidest of all excuses. If he had not done that, I wouldn't have done this. But it should be just the other way around. This is what I call being sincere. When you are with someone, if you are sincere, instantaneously your way of reacting should be to do the right thing, even when you are with someone who doesn't do it. Take the most common example of someone who gets angry. Instead of saying things that hurt, you say nothing. You keep calm and quiet. You do not catch the contagion of the anger. You have only to look at yourself to see if this is easy. It is quite an elementary thing, a very small beginning to know whether you are sincere. And I am not speaking of those who catch every contagion, even that, of course, joking, nor of those who commit the same stupidity as others. I tell you, if you look at yourself with sharp eyes, you will catch in yourself insincerities by the hundred, even though you are trying to be sincere in your general attitude. You will see how difficult it is. I tell you, if you are sincere in all the elements of your being, to the very cells of your body, and if your whole being integrally wants the divine, you are sure of victory, but for nothing less than that. That is what I call being sincere. I am not speaking of glaring things like obeying your impulses, your caprices, and then saying, I do not belong to myself anymore. I belong to the divine. It is the divine who is doing everything in me, who is acting in me. That indeed is crude enough. I am speaking of more refined people, a little more noble, who put on a pretty cloak to cover their desires. How many things in the course of a day, how many thoughts, sensations, gestures are turned exclusively towards the divine in an aspiration? How many? I believe if you have a single one in the whole day, you may mark that in red letters. When I say if you are sincere, you are sure of victory, I mean true sincerity, to be constantly the true flame that burns like an offering. That intense joy of existing only by the divine and for the divine, and feeling that without him nothing exists, that life has no longer any meaning, nothing has any purpose, nothing has any value, nothing has any interest unless it is this call, this aspiration, this opening to the supreme truth, to all that we call the divine. Because you must use some word or the other, the only reason for the existence of the universe. Remove that and everything disappears. There is a prayer, that I was taught. It's 2 lines, but which has always stayed with me, and I keep it in my phone so that I know the correct wordings. And it says that when you're ill or when you're in a problem or when you're whatever disturbs you, you say, beloved cells, always remain healthy in bliss and peace as an abode of the divine. You keep on begging your cells to remain peaceful. So this is what I had read last week when I told you, no, Taru.
So a part of it, it touched this, that no matter what the other does, you do the right thing.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult to do it on a practical day-to-day basis because, today only I have a 7-year-old and he had a fight with a Didi, and he shouted at her very badly, like really badly. And when we, kind of, I spoke to him what happened, stuff, he just for about 2 hours couldn't get over the fact that, but this is what she did to me. And I was like, but no matter what she did to you, is this shouting okay? Like, would you like if somebody shouted at you like that? He said no, but, but what she did to me was not all right. So I'm just saying that, I mean, with a 7-year-old, obviously it's just, but when he was like with the, I don't know, the force in him which was saying that, but she did that, she did that, she did that. Like I could see so much of me that I'm always looking, okay, I don't know, reasons for an unkind thought, right? Okay, this person did this. It's justified, right? That if I'm having this unkind thought for them, it's always okay. I have a reason. I have a reason. I have a reason. But till I have a reason, I just keep playing these games of kabaddi, right? Like I would, I will not be able to step out of the field and say enough done, right? And these reasons really make us go crazy, right? They make us dance to their tunes because something in you feels justified. And again, probably the ego that I can do it, I will do it. It's okay. It was the other person. Like here everybody is saying that there's no other, and yet every time I see it through that glass, that okay, because what was done to me was not all right, or what was said to me was not all right, or what was done, even if I'm not involved, which I see somebody, I don't know, shooting somebody, right? If I'm not even the direct involved person, I would have my judgments. I would say, yeah, this person should be punished, right? Always kind of in the realm of the reasons and the ethics and moralities and reaching nowhere. So it's just how we are played was pretty amazing that
But
we
the
don't
child,
give up.
if you see it from the kid's point of view, he's seeing what is right and he's seeing righteousness. And at his little tender age, he's correct. He's very justified also, not in the manner in which he shouted, but then for a 7-year-old to fathom that why, it must have been his sense of injustice which yelled. So one can't really be harsh on them because they may not understand. Whereas I'm seeing children in the ashram school, I sometimes have the opportunity to interact with them when they are not well. Their reactions are different because they are never shouted at. And the parents are very conscious. Most of the parents are very conscious parents. And so, because they do not know that sense of righteousness and they don't know that sense of self defense, and they don't, theirs is all compassion and compassion and compassion. And yesterday, a little child read synthesis to me. She read Supreme Will, a whole paragraph, and she is less than 7 years old, and I was stunned. She's 6.5. Flawless. Nothing has been taught to her. She started reading when she was 3. So, because they are honed in a different way, so it is how we expose the child.
Yeah.
Now, a child goes down in the building to play and he's used to being shut up by everybody. That poor kid will not know anything else. Not their fault at all.
Mhm. Yeah, I was not talking. Yeah, I mean, I absolutely hear what you're saying, but I was just amazed at the, how, I mean, he's usually very, I think I'll stop like now, but yeah, just that it was a mirror, right? Like it was a mirror that how it's not about, I mean, I'm always using others or excuses to justify something that I did or felt or a bad thought that arose. That it was, there's something in me which says it's okay, it was the other's fault. And so that one, that's also not needed. Like, just that also needs to be offered. And
But
that's, yeah,
that is human nature, which we are used to till now, and
yeah,
blame the fellow in front.
yeah, yeah.
No,
I
but
lose my basic kindness by a unkind thought, and I'm blaming the other internally that you made me, it was you who said this, and that's why I
you
reacted like
triggered
this. How?
me.
What?
You
You
triggered
trigger.
me.
Yeah, yeah. And it was justified by the way you said that. I mean, it's just amazing the games we play with ourselves. You know how this one's, what you just shared, it did cover that as well. I don't know where it was.
Yes, it did.
Yeah, so that part was also there.
Mother said, no, you justify it.
Hmm.
Yeah, this one, no, when you are with someone, if you are sincere, instantaneously, your way of reacting should be to do the right thing, even when you are with someone who does not do it. Yeah.
Hmm. And this thing also, now one always gives favorable explanation for all that one does, for one's words, for one's acts, right? Until then, till when I am giving these explanations, I'm not even owing up to what the problem is, right? Like till I'm giving these excuses, and I don't even realize that. And this is also funny, this deceiving the divine. One, like, that we try to, but so much, how it's said that a lot of times the first thing is not to deceive oneself. I feel this in itself takes a long time to get it fully, because there's so much happening in the undercurrents that it's mind boggling, the things that you start seeing when you start seeing, right? It's like, oh my god, what is happening? Yeah, here also, here also, here also. But yeah, how mother says that don't lose heart, right? Like when you relax, when you think that you cannot do anymore or whatever, it's like not happening. It's then that the walls will break. So, and on sincerity also, there was this quote from mother that only those who are sincere would know that they are not sincere enough, kind. So just to give us hope.
We read that recently.
We did. Yeah.
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 Only a person who is sincere will know the meaning of not being sincere.
Sincere. Yeah.
Recently, we've read it.
Yeah. I think Monica had posted it in the group or something. That's where I think read it. Yeah. So I had 1 second. The, like taken out something to share on inner detachment and the witness attitude. Again, I think almost the same on the same line. So the individual consciousness is not by its nature detached from the mental and other activities. So by nature, it's attached, like that's quite obvious as well. But as the consciousness develops, the power of detachment also develops. You know how it's like kind of proportional, I felt when I was reading it. But the need for detachment is not individual to you. Everyone has to do that with his difficulties. Detach means that the witness in oneself has to stand back and refuse to look on the movement as his own, the soul's own, and look on it as a habit of past nature or an invasion of general nature. This past also is a very difficult thing to transcend. Like, it keeps coming and trying to pull you, pull you, pull you. And,
Yeah.
kind of saying that you made this promise, or, you said you will do it, or like
Yeah.
people tell you, you were never like this. So this has a very strong pull, and one has to stand very strong, and there has to be a lot of grace to be able to step over
Yeah.
this habit of past nature. And then this invasion of general nature, we spoke in almost everything we shared. This was touched today.
Yes, exactly. In Synthesis of Yoga also it is there, that past
Yeah.
nature. Yes.
Then to deal with it as such, it may seem difficult, but it comes perfectly well by trying persistently. Any comments? Should I go on?
Actually, today only I contemplate upon this witness attitude. I just, what is that witness actually? It is the soul which is speaking from inside to go in the path, okay. And what is it? It's seeing all the activities in the outer surface level. So that is the witness, no? Witness is seeing all the activities. I just talk like that in the afternoon for myself. All the activities. And the soul is speaking from inside to surrender to divine everything. No? That soul, that witness is a separate thing. Am I correct?
This attitude is
Uh,
stepping back.
okay.
Witness attitude is your awareness.
Mm-hmm.
You and me are fighting.
Mm.
Okay. There we are fighting.
Mm.
And suddenly
Mm.
I say, no, I should develop the witness attitude. What will I do? I go back as a third person
Mm.
and I watch me and you fighting.
Okay.
I'm watching me and you fighting.
Mm.
That is my witness attitude.
Okay.
And then suddenly I realize, how foolish am I? What am I doing? But that will only come when you step back. If you are in it, it doesn't come. Witness attitude never comes when you are involved in it. It comes with stepping back.
Yes.
Lakshmi always uses the term.
Mm.
We have to use witness attitude.
Yes.
She always says,
that awareness is also the witness attitude, no? Actually, yeah.
In this book also, it was briefly touched. It's not exactly witness, but it said that mindfulness can be interpreted in two ways. Concentration, which is narrow and laser-like, or awareness, which is more panoramic. So she took an example, listening to music. If one is really listening to music, it is as if one is absorbed into the music. As the poet T.S. Eliot puts it, music heard so deeply that it is not heard at all, but you are the music while the music lasts. So basically, you're not listening to music, you become the
From
music.
the music, yeah.
Yeah, so this, she says, is concentration. But to know one is absorbed in the music is awareness.
Awareness is that witness attitude. You look at yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, understood.
No,
Yes.
remember in the beginning, in January, December, I told you all I was doing a course called Sakshatkara.
I don't remember, but
Looking at
do tell us.
yourself
Okay.
within.
Okay.
Look at yourself within is Sakshatkara. In that, she made us look at ourselves, and it was so difficult. She took us down memory lane. Your first memory recall of happiness, the first lesson you learnt in life, your first memory of sorrow. And when you rebound and you went along that path, there was now at this age, I mean, mine is after maybe 59, 60 years, it was a total witness attitude. I was not involved. And I was looking at it objectively. And it was like a movie playing, a film reel playing, and you're watching. That is witness attitude.
Yeah.
That is awareness.
Jyotsna ji, that topic we had covered in Circle of Harmony, reliving is relieving. That also that was the main thing, that when you relive something, what you just shared, right? Like when you go back and relive it, you're able to, not be touched by the emotional roller coaster, the rights and the wrong. You just see things for what they are.
Yeah.
And suddenly you realize that you were looking at things with, different colored glasses.
With tinted glasses.
Tinted glasses. So, and then you're able to see the whole picture and drop it. See the whole picture and drop it. Like, and I think that is the basis of all psychotherapy, not all, but most of it, right? Like when you just go back and see, like even in past life regression. So, sometimes.
Regressive life therapy is based on that.
Yeah.
You recall and drop, recall
Yeah.
and drop.
Like becoming the other, right? For yourself, becoming the other. And yet it's so tough to become the other for yourself. And for that, I think, Chitraji, that exercise that mother talks about, seeing yourself on the screen, I think that is towards building that only, that witness attitude, that now you're not this person doing it, you are the person watching.
Watching, yes.
Yeah. So even James had touched it very beautifully in last week's session. That
Today also he had a Fantu session.
Yeah. Your words also scare me. That yeah. So I'll continue with that. Should we? Are we done? Like, are we? Because, or should I continue with that?
Continue.
Oh. One must get the power to quiet the mental and vital, if not at first, at all times, yet whenever one wills. This I found very important. But sometimes you're able to do it sometimes, or after some movement. But it's like, why can't I do it always? Like, it's like, why does it? So that thing crops up. But here she says that even if you're able to do it at will, for it is the mind and the vital that covers up the psychic being as well as the self. And to get at either one must get in through their veil. That you get through the mind or to the vital to the being. But if they are always active and you're always identified with their activities, the veil will always be there. So I think, Chitraji, for the witness that you asked, that identification, again, that probably is the key, that you're not identifying, then you're able to become the witness. It is also possible to detach yourself and look at these activities as if they were not your own. But a mechanical action of nature, which you again, touched
Yeah.
at the beginning,
Mm.
which you observe as a disinterested witness, one can then become aware of an inner being which is separate.
Very clear it is. Yeah, this is very clear.
There was this how it had, yeah, see, there are stages. This is the last thing I read today. There is a stage in sadhana in which the inner being begins to awake. Often the first result is the condition made up of the following elements. One, a sort of witness attitude in which the inner consciousness looks at all that happens as a spectator or observer, observing things but taking no active interest or pleasure in them. The first thing is the witness attitude. You use your inner consciousness to look at things but not taking active interest or pleasure. Second is a neutral equanimity in which there is neither joy nor sorrow, only quietude. Once I'd heard, and I might have shared it before, I found it beautiful. Somebody, another mystic, was kind of talking about equanimity. And he said that from your house, if a dead body is being, kind of sent or is there, and a newborn baby is coming, and your state of mind is equal, that is equanimity. And that is what, you can do it like that. It's just, I don't know, it never left me. It's so amazing. My potential as a human is so amazing. If just
Samatha.
Both,
Samta,
yeah, samatha, yes, both death and birth. Yes.
when you use these words, death and birth, somehow they seem distant, right? But now I don't know this example because it has recently occurred in my life also. Somehow this example that a dead body is going and a newborn is coming in, it seems so opposite. Even if I don't know, for oneself it might not, but the whole ambience, right? The whole, it's just so different for where it is. So it's amazing. Sorry, moving on. Third is a sense of being something separate from all that happens, observing it but not part of it. So in first, you're part of it, you don't take any active interest. In second, you're part of it, but there's neutral equanimity. Third is you see you're separate from all that happens, you're not part of it. And fourth is an absence of attachment to things, people, or events. Again, then you're not part of it and you are beyond that. Like you've stepped back fully. You're not even observing, right? Like, because for observing also, a level of attachment is required, right? That you are attached, so you're participating and you're looking. That example of Upanishads, that very famous example of the birds, right? The two birds, one is eating the fruit and the other is witnessing. I used to sometimes wonder that why would the witness bird even watch the one who's eating? Because I was not interested. But once we were discussing, so captain had said that actually both the birds are you.
Yeah.
Right? You are watching yourself eating. So it's not that why you would watch, but I think this probably was what I was contemplating, that
Today is very nice.
yeah,
That witness of it. Yes.
that there is no attachment
Yeah.
and you don't need to even observe.
The beauty is, no, recently I took an oath like this actually. I should not involve myself. I should go there and see everything and take part in that actually in a very in a very what detached attitude. But I could sense what I can say. I could sense some insult actually. I don't know whether my our thing become very sharp after we enter into this path and all. So I could see that insult. I never answered that, but it was lingering in the mind. I never answered that. Definitely, I'm not going to get affected by that also. But that hypocrisy, that thing, it's lingering. Whether I had to answer for that or whether it was correct, I kept quiet. Those questions arose in me. Yeah, these are the, I mean, life's lessons, no, actually. Then that thing also, when a person reacted very badly and using all filthy words, I tried to correct that person, but I could not. After some time, I kept quiet. That person was wondering why this. Automatically, it happened actually. Every time I used to react, but this time I noticed, particularly, I became very quiet suddenly. I could not react at all actually. That also happened. Yeah, because sometimes with even without our effort, no, maybe because of all the readings, all little have little effect. I think actually, yeah.
A lot of changes come in a person once he starts walking. There are times during your reading when you literally gallop. You just absorb every word that is said, everything that you read, everything up. And then suddenly there are days when nothing goes in. And you're just staring and you're just looking at it and nothing seems to be shaking or moving you. And you keep wondering, now what have I done to myself? I've gone into tamasic mode.
Mm.
I, sometimes I cannot explain, but then I take to bouncing one victim only, and I tell him, you are the cause of why I have gone like this. My brain doesn't work, and somehow that rejuvenates me back again and back again. I'm the same again within 5-10 minutes. But then there are moments where we just go. But one does tend to quieten down a lot, a hell of a lot. Once this serious reading has begun, वो एक अजीब सी हम लोग कहते हैं शांतता आ जाती है. It's you don't recognize yourself. You actually most of your reactions are very very calm. So I don't know whether it is detachment or step back attitude or whether it is
We don't
third
know yet.
witness attitude or whatever you call it, but that attitude does come in.
Yeah.
And it is evolving very fast, so day to day, you keep noticing. I don't know whether it is progress or regress, but for a for a fact, you change.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
And
was a good point.
Mm.
you uh, you discern very clearly, but now, how do I put it? You can clearly see when somebody is making Charlie of you, when
That's
you are
what. You
when you
become
are
very
making
sharp.
Charlie
Yeah.
with someone. Very clear. Something which you had a clouded vision earlier.
Yeah.
Very amazing. I don't know. Have you gone through it, Taru?
I think it's all in the, again, sidelines, because for me, I think especially these days, it's just, so much more that has to be done. Like all these inner movements, these things that I was talking about that I keep seeing, it weighs heavy, again and again I have to, kind of, how they say that, I think Alok Das said or something in one of his talks, कि जैसा भी हूँ तेरा हूँ, like, kinds like you have to keep saying that, okay, I see this in me, but I'm yours, and you please hold my hand and take me, further and further, because it's just
Yeah.
too much. Like it's just, I don't know, in so many layers, so much is sitting, still needing to be, like jhadued out, that sometimes it just feels overwhelming, and yet, everything is following some divine plan. So one has to keep. But I today am as it is pretty, with all those things that I just told you happen, and all the shouts screaming. So it's a bit overwhelming. I mean, a little bit, because it again, that mirror thing, it hits you hard, and especially when it happens in a child, that he has seen this somewhere, right? Like, and most likely in you. So it's again that, that letting go, or yeah. So it's just
Yeah,
interesting. But yeah,
surrendering helps a lot. As you said, surrendering helps a lot. Even if we surrender and start the day, that day is taken care of even without our knowledge. That is what I'm noticing now, actually. Without our knowledge, without our effort, also sometimes. After that, you will realize, yeah, it is really taken care of. Really, really. It is true. It is true, as you said.
I
Because it is a
found
wonder, no? Our whole Srishti is a wonder. There are so many, many, many parts in us. Yeah.
I found one thing, but Taru, in bringing up a child, I was an older parent. So by then I was halfway down my path already. You know, I had been reading a lot. And Khalil Gibran and Mother Sri Aurobindo influenced me in upbringing of my kid. I realized one thing, that the earlier I became open to her very early, very, very early. And the more I was open and approachable, the more I was laying myself bare and vulnerable, she became more moldable.
mm,
You know, it was not cut and dry. No, you will not do this. No, you cannot do this. No, this is wrong because I tell you it's wrong. No, I would, reason. And she used to tell me as if I was her age, but mom, this is the way, this is how life is. You don't know nothing. So I would behave like I knew nothing. But
mm,
in the bargain, the other person doesn't realize that he's also become open and vulnerable in the during that moment, and they absorb. So I found that my little rat is the living example of that. That just to be open, and while you have to become vulnerable, you cannot always be the parent sitting on the pedestal. You have to go down to your being her kid level also.
yeah.
But it worked, and it helped, and it has helped many kids.
Mm,
So I felt that somewhere maybe my ego squashing training began then, unknowingly. But the ego starts going,
I mean,
and
totally. That day, Ritu, you know her now. We were discussing that how, all kids are actually, that's the story of Hiranyakashyap, that how the child is born to tell you you're not God, right? Either die or come down to your knees, and how we all want to play God, that I know, what would you know? Just listen to me. It's just very humbling and grounding to be told that, come to come on earth, like you're not God. So I think that's one of the most important roles of kids, of you having kids, to realize that you know nothing. And
Like I still say, I literally have learned my ABCD from her.
Mm. Yeah.
A 2.5-year-old telling you, no, mama, say A as A.
Yeah.
And then I used to think, bloody hell, yeah, this one doesn't know anything. But I used to say A as A, and
Yeah.
then you would again say.
Yeah. Yeah.
A.
Yeah.
And I always tell her, I learned my alphabet from you, beta. And they feel thrilled.
Yeah. 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 Perfect. So should we end the session?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Unless you have anything else.
Yeah, I think I'm feeling quite okay right now. I'll end the record.